Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a bit of lit. I'm here to do the Canterbury Tales tag. I haven't done a tag in a while, and I wanted to do something fun, and it looks like fun. So, number one, this is 26 questions long, so it could be a while. And I haven't looked at the answers. I've listened to a few answers, but I have not. I've watched a few videos, but have not actually thought about these answers. So it should be interesting what comes out of my brain. The host is the character who relates the tales of the reader. He is large, loud, and merry. Recommend a mammoth book over 800 pages for March of the Mammoths. And I'm gonna say, although recently, because of the news, everyone seems to be uncomfortable with anything related to Russia, despite the fact that certain things are far older than the current leaders of Russia. I'm going to say War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy because it is magnificent. It's really a wonderful experience, and in large part, what is interesting to me is that it really breaks down the idea of sort of a large, powerful figure as the driving force of some kind of movement. And we see that with Napoleon, because I believe I read in the introduction to the edition that I read, I think it was an old Penguin Classic edition maybe, that was very much on the mind of Leo Tolstoy to break down this idea that one man has this much power when really it's about all the moving parts, all the people, and this kind of thing. And we see that really broken down because Napoleon, during the Napoleonic Wars, we see him fail miserably. And that character is really fascinating to me as well, because you really see what kind of person he is at his lowest and most pathetic, in a sense. Now make of that what you will. What I'm implying, perhaps. But it's really a fantastic book. And it's just such a beautiful book, man. Pierre, come on. I think it has a very interesting take on the way history is told. And what it means, what war is truly like, and a deconstruction of the myth of one man has history in his hands, when it's really everybody involved, all the moving pieces, and this kind of thing. So I've spent enough time talking about War and Peace. Amazing book. I understand there is some concern. I don't feel comfortable reading about that, and it's from that country and war. But there's the other side, the peace side. Anyway, it's an amazing book. The Knight stands for fighting, war, and bravery. Recommend a book with a courageous main character. Oh, I just said War and Peace. I'm gonna say Journey to the West, or The Monkey King. Sun Wukong is incredibly courageous, brave to a fault, although he's an incredibly powerful monkey. Sun Wukong is funny, and he's brave and courageous, and he, fights evil and this kind of thing, gets himself in a lot of trouble. He learns a lot of valuable lessons, and there's a lot of really interesting things you can pull from it. I don't fully understand Chinese history and culture, so I don't quite grasp everything it's trying to critique, but you can still pull some really interesting things about Chinese culture, Chinese ideas from the time period it was written, which is a very long, very, very long time ago. I can't remember exactly how long, but yeah, Sun Wukong in Journey to the West, absolutely phenomenal. Very long, just like War and Peace. I could have mentioned that for the host, but for question one. But I'll save for the night because he fights demons, dude. Come on. The Wife of Bath stands for marriage, sex, and arguing. Tell us about a book with a strong female character. I'm gonna say Pride and Prejudice, because that's the first one that comes to mind. I was trying to avoid typical answers, but it's the one that comes to mind. I don't think I really need to explain yet another literary classic, but yeah, I mean, Elizabeth is sure of herself to a fault as well, and she's confident, and she knows what she wants, and she's funny, and she's witty, and she's incredible. So yeah, I love Jane Austen's novels. There's a few I haven't read yet, but the ones I have read, I've loved all of them. So let's move on. But yeah, Pride and Prejudice, another amazing book. The Partner is all about ambiguity. Tell us about your favorite queer characters. Well, I'll just say that my favorite queer characters, if it comes from a book, has to be from Two Boys Kissing, which I made. That was like one of my first videos. I talked about that book. And it's got a lot of views actually, but it's only been watched for like 20 seconds or something. It's almost at 1,000 views because I think people, I've seen people were looking for like boys making out. And it's got, my thumbnail is, one side is me looking at the other side, which is also me. Anyway, yeah, that book is all about different stories of different young men, whether they're trans or cisgendered or coming out of the closet or facing difficulties. It's a really amazing, incredible book, and it's told through like a chorus of gay men that died from the AIDS epidemic or pandemic or whatever. The AIDS epidemic. I don't know if it was fully a pandemic, but anyway, yeah, lots of queer characters in there, and it's a really powerful book. I really recommend it. The Miller, number 5. The Miller is bold, blasphemous, and overturns conventions. Who is your favorite naughty character? I already said Sun Wukong. I think, I mean, he's completely naughty. The things that he does, man, are just terrible. To avoid talking about Sun Wukong, well, you know what, I'm just gonna say it because that's what comes to mind. Just saw my girlfriend said. Sun Wukong, there's a point where he's got an argument with Buddha, and Buddha's trying to prove something to him, teach him a lesson, and he like is challenged to go to the pillars of the universe or something, and Sun Wukong accepts the challenge and he goes there, and in his excitement and enthusiasm, he because he thought he won, he pees on the pillars, and then it turns out he's actually in Buddha's hand, so he peed in Buddha's hand. Yeah, hate to talk about the same book, but again, Journey to the West is incredible. Number 6, The Prioress is modest, quiet, and compassionate. Recommend a book you don't hear much about on BookTube. Well, on the side of BookTube that I see, I don't see a lot of love for I don't see a lot of love for Xin Liu's three-body problem. All kinds of issues with it. Very, very traditional in its views on women. Always blaming women for all the problems. A little bit hard to read because it's so technical and this kind of thing. Possibly a little nationalist for China, but make of that what you will. It is a cool book where the end of the world is brought about by a woman who is seeking revenge on the human race because her father was killed during the Cultural Revolution. Now, if that doesn't sound like a good time, I don't know what does. There's all kinds of really interesting parts about it. It's very cool. The sequels are also have a lot of really interesting parts, but they get more problematic in terms of themes, especially the Dark Forest. The Dark Forest is... Anyway, Three-Body Problem is pretty cool. And Death's End is also really cool. Dark Forest is kind of cool, but Death's End has issues that are really just no femboys allowed. It's very traditional in its view, and there are a lot of problems with it, but I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Maybe that's for a good reason, but I did enjoy it, although I do have issues with it. Number 7, good lord, it's already 12 minutes in. Number 7, the monk cares little for the rule of work and prayer. Tell us about an unconventional character. Ignatius C. Riley from Confederacy of Dunces. He's the most ridiculous character in an absurd book. I mean, he's like the definition of based. He's based on himself. He's completely himself. He's so bizarre. I've seen a statue of him in New Orleans because the author wrote the book in New Orleans, was from New Orleans. Love that book, Confederacy of Dunces. Very funny. Strange book. The Friar is all about confession. Confess to us. Have you read the Bible, Torah, Quran, or other religious texts all the way through? I believe I have read the Bible all the way through, though I don't remember anything about it. And so I've definitely not read the Torah or Quran or any other religious texts. I mean, I've read the Analects of Confucius, which is not quite a religion, it's philosophy kind of thing, but yeah. I'm going to say I haven't even read the Bible all the way through, because I remember reading it, but I don't remember reading every single part, and I definitely don't remember the stories very well, except a few, mostly mostly Old Testament stories and a few New Testament stories. Number 9, a summoner is lecherous and a drunk who tries to sound more educated than he is. Tell us about a book that sounded better than it was. That would have to be, what is that book? What is that book? That would have to be, Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut. That is a truly atrocious, god-awful, completely lost its own plot and theme book. Genuinely terrible. All about be careful who you pretend to be, because you will. I forgot how it goes. You ought to be careful because of who you pretend to be, because you will become who you pretend to be. That's not the right phrase. I don't remember how it goes. But it's about a guy who works as a spy who decides to stay in Germany when the World War starts, even though his family leaves because they don't want any part of it. But he stays because he just wants to work on his art. He does not care about politics whatsoever, and so he joins the Nazis and becomes a figurehead for the propaganda machine, promoting hate. And then he's on trial for doing so, even though he was secretly sending messages to the Americans through a series of grunts, coughs, and silent sounds. And I'm supposed to, like, this guy literally does not care about what he's promoting, because he just wanted to work and he just wanted to be with his wife. He just wanted to write and be with his wife. I don't care what the Nazis are doing. It doesn't matter to me, but I better be careful not to pretend to be like them, because I'm not one of them. I'm not one of the violent murderers. No, I'm just promoting the violent murder. It's totally different. Oh, well, maybe I do deserve that. And you know what? And I'm on trial, but I got off the hook because documents were found to prove I'm gonna hang myself anyway. Not because of my crimes against humanity, no. Crimes against myself. It's fucking stupid. Could have, has an interesting premise in itself. Poorly written, clunkily worded, but fair enough. Decent idea, I guess. Utterly piss poor execution, and that's what I've come to expect of Kurt Vonnegut. God awful. The parson is poor but rich in thought and deeds. Tell us about a book that gave you more than you expected. Moby Dick, definitely. I haven't read it in a couple years actually, but for a while I was reading it once every year in November, of course, because of loomings, when Ishmael talks about a storming November soul or something like that. I've now forgotten it because it's been a couple years, but I always return to that book, and I always think about different parts of it and what they mean, and how prescient some of them are, and what they were trying to say, what he was trying to say, what Herman Melville wanted to let people know. And it's just an incredible book. I constantly think about it. I love it. It's my favorite book of all time. It means a whole lot to me. Number 12. Number 11. 18 minutes in, man. 17 and a half. The Squire stands for youth, beauty, and courting. What book did you fall in love with when you were a youth? Regrettably, Harry Potter. I refuse to say more. The clerk says little, but his words are wise and morally virtuous. Tell us about a short book that made you a better person. I don't think... Well, it's definitely not short. I'm just going to tell you about a book that did make me a better person, although now that I think about what was actually in the book, extremely problematic, although extremely a really cool book, even more problematic than Cixin Liu's Three-Body Problem. Stranger in a Strange Land. That book, I took like sort of maybe the right messages from it and missed all of the weird sex-obsessed homophobic stuff completely. But all this idea of grok, when I was younger, I was less empathetic to people, very much so. And sometimes I still struggle to empathize with others, no doubt, but reading that not just that book, it's quite long, it's not short, but maybe compared to War and Peace it's short, so let's say that. But this idea of like trying to fully understand someone, or becoming water brothers and that kind of thing, like really understanding someone else, along with some other forms of media and just personal life experience, and also reading Great Expectations, by the way, which hopefully I can talk about more later. That would probably that's a shorter book, I think, and actually a better response, but it's still quite long. Sort of started shifting the gears, also being criticized by my friends that I'm not empathetic and like, oh, I'm a jerk. Still struggle with it sometimes, but I think I'm a lot more empathetic than I was when I was younger, so I am a better person. And I do want to read Stranger in a Strange Land again, but I just know that I'll be disappointed in everything I see. But it's still so cool. Where was I? The man of law upholds, number 13, the man of law upholds justice and knows the laws by heart. What is a book you could not imagine rereading? What is a book you could not imagine rereading? Dang it, I already said Harry Potter. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go with another Vonnegut book. I will never ever reread Mother Night, but I can't imagine rereading The Sirens of Titan. It's complete and utter nonsense. It's just wacky thing after wacky thing, and I don't understand what he's trying to go for. He's got themes in there, but it's not supported by anything because everything's just completely wacky, and maybe that's the point. I can't. Basically, let's just say, as I'm doing this Who is Kurt Vonnegut series, I can't imagine reading anything by Kurt Vonnegut again, because I've just finished Cat's Cradle, and it's actually okay. His themes are pretty tightly focused. There are parts I don't like. I'll make that video soon, but so far it's the only one that I could imagine coming back to, but I never will because I don't want to. But yeah, anything by Kurt Vonnegut I can't imagine rereading because I hate him. Except Cat's Cradle, I don't totally hate it. I just, yeah. Number 14, The Manciple provides the food. Recommend a series you think is good from the first book to the last. Well, I guess it's technically just one book, but Lord of the Rings. Straight up banger. No more needs to be said. Incredible series. And if you want to include The Hobbit in that, lots of good fun to be found in The Hobbit, too. Let's see. Number 15. The Merchant deals in furs and cloth and is powerful and wealthy. Recommend a book with a powerful message or theme. I keep saying books that I've already said War and Peace. I've already said Pride and Prejudice. I've already said... You know what, though? I'm going to say Great Expectations here, because I did mention it earlier. Great Expectations is a phenomenal book. I love that book. It is the book that really changed me, more so than Stranger in a Strange Land. But I read them about the same time for the first time, and just mind-blowing to me. I related so much to Pip. I don't think I was quite as... I grew up poor, like Pip. Not quite as poor. I didn't go into a situation where I felt like, oh, I'm suddenly in a position of wealth, like Pip. But the way that Pip, when I read it, I want to reread it so bad. I love that book so much. That is awesome. It's like 1A and 1B, Moby Dick and Great Expectations. The way that the story is told from a much older perspective of his youth, and it's just so full of venomous regret and spite for himself and his own actions. Reading that book, actually I read it twice in the same year because I had to for 2 different classes in college, but the first time it really the gears started shifting. And the second time I really saw exactly how much I was like Pip, because Pip was not grateful for people in his life that helped him, and I was certainly not grateful enough. And didn't act grateful for the people in my life that have helped me, or had helped me at that point. And now I'm much more grateful for those people that have helped me, my mother, my best friends, these kind of things. But the way he mistreats one of his parental figures and takes advantage of that person, I could relate to. And just that deep feeling of regret of I have acted in such poor ways and terrible ways to people that care about me. Pip, much worse than I ever was, but I was a lot more callous and cold and less empathetic and grateful at the time for the people in my life and that kind of thing. And yeah, that book, The Great Expectations, really taught me a lot. So powerful message for me. And thematically, just, it's a completely crazy book too, which I love, but it's so utterly wild. But yeah, I love that book. Number 16, The Shipman is a wine-stealing rascal. Tell us about a side character who steals the spotlight. This is going to be tough. I'm going to have to go to Goodreads. Okay, let's see. Side character that steals the spotlight. Well, I'd have to say... Side character that steals the spotlight. Terry Pratchett wrote a book called Nation, and it's about this young boy who's from an island, and this disaster befalls his people, and they're all dead except him, and he has to rebuild civilization, basically, by himself. A young girl washes ashore from a shipwreck, and so it's basically them, and then some other characters come that are stranded. And I personally really enjoy the side characters more than the main character, although I'm forgetting his name now. I think it starts with M, but I can't remember. I really enjoyed the side characters in that book. The whole book is really good. I don't know if it's really Terry Pratchett's story to tell exactly, you know, but it is really a great book about who you are, what like a community means, and how you build that up, how you build yourself up, how you build up relations, and yeah, it's also a little bit about colonization. Really a really well done book, but I really enjoy the side characters that come in, who are either supportive of the main character, the girl, or the older man who is always like disbelieving. They're a lot of fun. They add a lot to the story, and I would say, yeah, Nation by Terry Pratchett. I really like the side characters more. And they steal the spotlight from me. Number 17, The Physician Knows What Ails You and Can Cure It. Tell us about a book you consider a comfort read. I would say The Hobbit. I've already mentioned it. The Hobbit, very relaxed, fun, adventure with the boys, so to speak. That's good fun. And yeah, I really love The Hobbit. It's nice and easy and relaxing. I already know the story. I enjoy the characters. And yeah, good fun. Number 18, The Franklin is not a vassal or a noble, but a free man. Recommend a book about freedom in any form. Yes, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. For this question, I would have to say... the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass is a really great book. It's more about his enslavement, but it's just incredible the lengths he went to educate himself and free his mind, in a sense. And then, of course, he became a free man. Lots of narratives like this, lots of slave narratives, are really just mind-blowing and powerful reads, because these are the most oppressed people, who are incredibly brave for writing this kind of stuff and sharing their story and this kind of thing. It's the bravest people ever. And yeah, any kind of story like that, that tells us about the real experience, is, in my mind, sort of, free for them, especially, and it really gives us a good insight into the psychological aspect of this stain on America's history, this vile, repulsive part of the land of the free, where all men are created equal. Anyway, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Number 19. The reeve is believable on the outside but lies on the inside. What book was different than what the blurb led you to believe? Probably The Vegetarian, which is a Korean novel. I did not realize the depths to which the woman who decided to become vegetarian would go to. I was also really surprised at how, I was just really surprised at how far things went, even though, the blurb does kind of say these things, but, it's quite extreme. Decent book. I believe it won some awards, but I would say The Vegetarian by Hong Kong. Hankang, if I remember right. Number 20, The Plowman is Good-Hearted and Faithful. What book do you read over and over again? Well, like I said, Moby Dick. Sometimes also Lord of the Rings. So, but those are the ones I mostly reread. And number 21, The Guildsmen are 5 men who act as a unit and stand for brotherhood or sisterhood. Recommend a book with a strong ensemble cast of characters. I've already said Lord of the Rings. If I had to say a book with a strong... what is that book? By Virginia Woolf. I don't remember if it's The Waves. I think it's The Waves. It's about these friends. The Waves by Virginia Woolf. Really amazing. Just, I don't understand how she can write like that. I mean, hard work. Natural talent, just a gift for the English language. But The Waves has all these different characters, and I don't know how to explain that book because I feel like I don't understand it. And it's been 33 and a half minutes. Who knows who's listening at this point. But The Waves has all these really interesting characters and shows their really inner psychology and moves from person to person. You really get a full examination of all these people from all the different perspectives. But it might be the Lighthouse that I'm thinking of. They all kind of come together and fall apart and this kind of thing. Lighthouse also has, I mean, either one. The Waves or The Lighthouse. But I think The Waves is one I'm thinking of, where they've got a friend who was a British officer and he dies, and I'm kind of forgetting now. It's been a little while. And it was kind of hard to read. But so was The Lighthouse. So I think The Lighthouse was about a family. And that was also good. So, okay. Number 22, The Cook Makes the Food That Feeds You. Tell us about a book that feeds your soul. Lord of the Rings. I've already said it. I love Sam. I love that Frodo fails. It's so accurate to what can happen. He has all this pressure. He's been suffering all this time. And, it's Sam and his undying compassion, and just every character is so good. Anyway, moving on. Number 23, The Yeoman Serves You. Tell us about a book that served its purpose, that did what you wanted it to do. It wasn't great, but wasn't bad. Man, this is why I need to prepare. I'm gonna say, I already talked about it a little bit. Cat's Cradle, very interesting concept. A man who is on the side, who worked on the atomic bomb. A man is doing some research for a book to write about a guy who worked on the atomic bomb. This guy also secretly worked on chemical composition of ice that would be frozen at room temperature. And it was supposed to be for something for war, so that mud would freeze over, but it was too dangerous because if it makes contact with water, it will freeze it instantly, and then can only be melted at a extremely high temperature. And yeah, it's sort of about creating a super weapon that destroys all of humanity. Very good book in that sense, and themes of like the use of the purpose of religion, and humanity's plight, and life and death and this kind of thing all come together pretty well, except the story is ruined by these weird, wacky parts that Kurt Vonnegut wants to put in. And number 24. Second hand talks about the saint's life in her tale. What book do you praise often? Every single book I've talked about already, that I talked about in high praise, those books. My throat is dry, so let's finish this. Sorry. The Nun's Priest is witty, number 25, and doesn't take himself too seriously. Recommend a book that has a funny or witty main character. To end this quickly, I'm going to say Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. I talked about him 3 times, but I love it. Tag some BookTube pilgrims around the weird for Mr. Nothing from Around the Weird. Thank you. Goodbye.